Hello my friends, I hope you're all doing well and that you're having a great week. In today's video, I have some information for you that I think you'll find very interesting, and I'm very curious to hear what all of you think about it. Long story short, I believe that there is a good chance that after the final shape, at some point, we will leave the solar system. This is something that I've seen a lot of people both wanting and speculating about, but why am I making this video? I will tell you. The last short video I made was a tribute to the Black Fleet, and the core of that video was Savi telling us their story. I'll have that video in the description in case you want to take a look for yourself. Those voice lines from Savathun were taken from her 2 Truths and 2 Lies game from back in Witch Queen, and I made a video about that way back when. You see, at a time when many didn't even believe there was a pyramid race, Savathun had these lines that when joined together painted this picture. The witness was once mortal. Its race had a golden age, just like us, but they were not content with the light and so went to the darkness. They were still not content with that and wanted more, and this led to, as she called it, greed and despair. For me, at the time, this was gold, because I had been claiming that there was a race since before Beyond Light. But a lot of people were skeptical, and rightfully so. After all, this information was coming from a known liar and deceiver. That being said, there was one aspect about these lines that made all the difference. Savi gave us these 2 truths and 2 lies multiple times, and the lines in question were spread across multiple groups. So why would she lie about the same thing twice? Why would she lie about there being a race multiple times? Either the witness had a race and they were not satisfied with the light, or they had the darkness and they weren't satisfied with that. Either way, the witness was still mortal once and had a race. In the end, the witness was once mortal. Its race were given a golden age by the gardener, but they were not content. They went and found the veil, and they learned about the darkness from it, but they were still not content. They wanted to change all of reality and claim their desired final shape, and that meant sacrificing their culture, their civilization, and their very lives to create the witness, the ultimate tank. You might be wondering why I just gave you this history lesson, and it's because this is concrete proof that not everything she said in Witch Queen was a lie, and that now, more than ever, we should be paying attention to what she said back in 2022. And that leads us to today's video. When I was making that tribute, I found more lines, and in them, a potential giveaway about what will happen after the final shape. I'll just play the audio for you.
Osiris is dead. Savathun is dead. The witness birthed the darkness. In the end, your destiny lies beyond this system.
Let's pick apart the truth from the lies. Osiris was not dead, clearly. He had lost Sagira and was in a coma, but he was not dead. The witness did not birth the darkness. Season of the Deep confirmed this. The pyramid race learned about the darkness from the veil. At the same time, Savi in that same expansion told us that the witness was not the darkness, but that it gave it a wicked shape, wearing it like a cloak. So leaving topics like the winnower and the deep out of it completely, I believe that it is still very clear that this line was a lie. And that leaves us with 2 lines that theoretically have to be truths. Savathun is dead. This line can have 2 meanings behind it. The first is that Savathun was dead, as in the character she was before becoming a Lightbearer, and then also that as of that moment when the line was spoken, she physically was dead. Both would be true. When she became arisen, a Lightbearer, she no longer had her memories, her worm, none of it. To a certain extent, she really was no longer Savathun as we knew her to be. We don't call Crow Aldrin, do we? I mean, I sometimes do, but that's for the giggles, right? Anna Bray, still Anna, but to be fair, she came to life with her old name tag on her, so, I mean, there's that. So for that first meaning, the line is true. And then for the second meaning, when that line was given to us, this was after the campaign of Witch Queen. So in that moment, Lightbearer Savathun is dead as well. So all in all, I believe that regardless of how you take this line, it is true. And finally, that leads us to the last line, us leaving the system. If she isn't screwing around with us, and she's staying true to the rules of the game, then this line has to be true. Before I get into my thoughts on this, are there any other lines from her that we should be aware of? Other lines that may help paint a picture of what context would surround this event? 3 lines, all to do with the Traveler. I'll just play the full thing.
The Traveler will leave. The Traveler will fall. The Traveler is not the only one of its kind. The Hive are not the last to be chosen by the light.
The Traveler is not the only one of its kind. The Traveler will fall. The Traveler will leave. But first, let's get the Hive one out of the way. Now maybe this is a stretch and it's just me, but I could 100% see either the Fallen or Cabal getting the light at some point. If the Hive got the light, I don't see why the Traveler would have an issue giving the light to the allied Fallen or Cabal. And fun fact, a ghost was potentially going to link with Rolk, but the Traveler intervened and caused it to self-destruct, claiming it was not for a disciple of the dark. So we do know that the Traveler is aware of who its ghosts are trying to pair with, and this also confirms 100% that the Traveler knew exactly what was happening when Amaru rezzed Savathun. So who knows, maybe in the future we could see Mithrax with the light, or Keitel, but yeah, in my opinion, I do see this as a truth, but to be fair, I completely understand if you agree. Okay, now on to the 3 Traveler lines. If the Hive line was true, then that means 2 of these next lines must be lies. After a good bit of thinking, the one that makes the most sense to me, the one that I think is true, is the Traveler leaving. Why? Well, for starters, if the Traveler was one of many, if there were 50 Travelers out in the universe somewhere, then why did the Black Fleet specifically want this one? Remember, they waited for ages, potentially centuries, after the collapse and did nothing until our Traveler woke up. If there were others that could potentially be linked with the Veil, then why not go after those? And speaking of the Veil, if people are right in saying that the Veil and Traveler are a pair, then wouldn't that mean there are other Veils as well? I'm sorry, but that's just too messy for me. I could spend a lot of time going into this, digging into the nitty-gritty details, and if you want me to on stream or in a video, let me know, but I'm sorry, overall, I do not believe there is more than one Traveler, and I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I really don't want this video to be super long because I go down this rabbit hole, but all I'll say is that the more you look into it, the more plot holes will pop up. Also, it would be super goofy if after 10 years of Destiny, we find out that there were 50 Travelers zooming around the place the whole time. I also don't think the Traveler will fall. For the record, I interpret this line as the Traveler going bye-bye, so its current compromised state doesn't count to me. Also, now that I think about it, that line was recorded before we defeated Savathun. That line was given to us before the Witch Queen campaign was finished. Her whole plan was to have the Traveler in her throne world for protection. Why would she go through all of that effort if she predicted that it would return to Earth and be compromised by the Witness? I know I'll get the whole "it's savvy" line, but to me it doesn't add up. So from how I see it, this line was not about the Traveler's current state. With the final shape, the Traveler is going to be a destination, literally, and we were told that destinations would no longer be vaulted, allegedly. So unless we have a way of getting inside the Pale Heart after the Traveler blows up, or falls apart, or blue screens, then I don't see this happening. We know that we are going to defeat the Witness. This isn't going to be a surprise to anyone. And once that happens, unless the Traveler again is broken beyond all repair, it should be able to heal, although I suspect that the portal won't be going away. So unless falling is meant to be a reference to the events of Lightfall, I'm going to personally say that this is a lie. These are some weaker points, but I'll add them regardless, and then you can take them or leave them. The Traveler is a massive marketing tool for Destiny. It's a major symbol for the franchise, and I don't know how Bungie would feel about ditching that. Again, I could be wrong, maybe they don't care at all. After all, we're gonna go to Marathon after the final shape anyway, right? Right? Second point is that if the Traveler falls, we lose our ghost. And the light. Unless the final shape has us basically become the god of the light, we will still rely on our ghosts for the light in the new saga. If the Traveler dies, the ghosts will either die themselves or lose their light for good, and by extension, so will we. I don't see this happening. Finally, we have the Traveler leaving. Let's look to the future. We've killed the Witness. It's a beautiful gun. I have its cloak as my doormat. And once the Witness and pyramids are gone, we are the most powerful beings in the Destiny universe. The closest thing to us will be Xivu, but she's locked out of her throne world, making her the weakest she's been in ages. She's going to be a gun next. But most importantly of all, the Traveler will be the safest it's been in a long time. It's healed since the collapse, and we've seen it travel from Earth to Savathun's throne world, so we know it can move long distances again. If the Traveler is free to move, then I think it will move. Why? To do what it did before the collapse, give golden ages. And I believe it makes complete sense for us to follow it. We are not just humanity's guardians, but the Travelers. I would have nothing against us chaperoning the Traveler, as it helps life across the galaxy. And sure, along the way, why not rebuild Reese? Why not rebuild Tora Bottle? If we're talking about contained episodes, I have nothing against this. And as a bonus point, the description of the ship Exohelion, introduced in Season of the Seraph, states that someday we will see the skies of worlds outside Soul's reach. Some of you may be wondering, we have the names of the episodes after the final shape, and none of them indicate we will leave the system. I agree with you, but keep this in mind. I am extremely confident that after Heresy, support for Last Gen will be cut off. If they are going to have us leave the system, that means new destinations, a lot of brand new fresh content, something that Last Gen would certainly hold back or make impossible. I am spitballing, I am fully aware of that, but I could see the first 3 episodes as a breather period after the final shape, with the Traveler recovering from the events of Lightfall and the final shape, and us dealing with the remaining threats in our system. I mean, are we really going to leave our system with the Hive, the Vex, and the Scorn still running around? Think about it. After Heresy, the Vex will be somewhat less of a threat, I hope. The Fanatic is probably going to be dead, let's be honest, and with that the Scorn threat will be significantly reduced. Xivu will either die or join us, taking the Hive out of the equation for good. There's the Worm Boys, but with the big 3 leaders of the Hive out of the way, their influence will again be significantly reduced. After that period, either a new threat will come to us, or we will go out and find it. And with everything I've just talked about, I could see us leaving the system after Heresy. This isn't a prediction, more like a summary of my theory. I believe Savathun knows that if we are victorious against the Witness, or she is, both we and the Traveler will eventually leave the system. If this theory is true, then I see this taking place after Heresy, as we need to wrap up the threats in our system first, and at the same time, support for Last Gen needs to go. But after that, who knows what could happen. I could be completely wrong here, I admit that, and I would be fine with that, but I think that there's a good chance those 2 lines are truths, and if they are, they could be major indications for the future after the final shape. We should keep in mind that plans change, and Bungie may have drastically scaled back their plans for D2 after Lightfall and the layoffs. So this is definitely just a theory more than anything. But what do you think? Do you think there's any merits to these lines? Do you think a different traveler line is more likely over the one I picked? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video, finding it entertaining or informative, and if I hit the wombo combo, maybe both. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey, especially all the new people that have come in recent days. Seeing you join has been a big motivation boost and inspiration for me. And to my channel members, thank you so much for supporting me. I am truly grateful for you guys. But yeah, with all of that being said, I will talk to you all real soon. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.